So, hello everybody. Last night we did the first seminar of symbolism that I'm setting up with Patreon for those that give 150 or more a month. And so I thought I would put up a few clips of our discussion because it was a lot of fun. We talked about a lot of things from movies to sex to cosmological symbolism. And so I'm not going to put up the whole discussion. I want to respect the privacy of the people who were involved in the discussion. But I thought I'd put up a few little clips just to give you a taste of the things we talked about. And so, for those who haven't seen it, my video of Logan was blocked by Fox. I put it up on DTube for now, and so you can find a description in. I'll put it in this description. What the link to that DTube video, and we're trying to re-edit it as well to see if we can put it up on YouTube in a different fashion. And so, yeah. So enjoy. Let's move on to the next question.
How's it going over there?
All right, so I assume you've heard Peterson's take on the story of Pinocchio. Do you agree in general with the interpretation? And do you think the creators purposefully shaped it like that because they understood the deeper meaning it would convey? Well, I agree with Jordan's interpretation. I think what's interesting about the Pinocchio story is that Jordan's not really interpreting the Pinocchio story as such. He's really interpreting Disney's movie of Pinocchio, which is much more concise. The story, the actual Pinocchio story, if you read it, it's rambling and it's chaotic and it's like all kinds of things mixed up and it's very moralistic. Like it's super moralistic. It's basically about, you need to obey your parents and go to school and be a good boy. Kind of like, really 19th century style moralism. Whereas Disney's version does end up being more archetypal. And I think that Disney was one of those people that definitely already had a very profound intuition about stories. He really boils them down to their kind of essential characteristics. And for example, like when they did Sleeping Beauty, there's nothing in the story of Sleeping Beauty which suggests that the evil queen is also a dragon. I'd never seen that before, but it makes absolute sense when you see it play itself out. You don't question it for a second. It makes absolute sense. And so I think that Disney, I don't know if it was on purpose more than he just had a very intuitive sense of what makes sense in terms of storytelling, and so, but he had to have some knowledge. And the fact that he made the dwarves 7, like there was no tradition that the dwarves were 7 before Disney, and so like in the Disney version of Snow White, for example, they really bring the notion of the apple and the notion of seduction into play really strongly, because the queen, when she goes to see Snow White, she gives her the apple and she says something about how like men love when you cook for them or something. Like if you make an apple pie for men, that's how you'll get their heart or something. So she's able to to join that together. Also, they bring the prince in at the beginning, which is not in the I've never heard that in the Snow White story before, where she sees the prince in the castle before, and so it's actually the stepmother who sees the prince being attracted to Snow White, which causes her to be her first spout of jealousy, which that's not in the I've never seen that in the storybook version of it. Yeah. So he really ties everything together and brings in a psychological element that's really kind of powerfully tied into the more, let's say, mythological structure. And so I think definitely Disney of all people had it going. And in terms of the Pinocchio story, I think that Jordan's interpretation is very sound. Like he sees this idea of the one thing that's not sound about Jordan's interpretation, and this is really coming from a Christian point of view, is that when Jordan talks about the Father, he always talks about the Father in the terms of God the Father. and he has this idea of going, of saving God with God the Father. He mixes up the notion of God the Father and, let's say, another version of the Father, and that's problematic, because God the Father in the Christian tradition doesn't represent what he says it represents. Doesn't represent the notion of a dead tradition, let's say, or the kind of an aging tradition. When Christ goes into the underworld, when in the more mythological version, like there's an apocrypha of the story of the death and resurrection of Christ, where it actually describes Christ going down into the underworld and then resurrecting people. But when Christ goes down into the underworld, he saves Adam. Okay, and Adam is the father. The father that Christ goes to save in the underworld is the old man Adam. It's his fallen ancestor. Okay, his fallen human ancestor. And so it's there in the story. It's not, I'm not making it up. That's the Christian story, that when Christ goes into death, he goes to save Adam. And so that's the only place where I disagree with Jordan in terms of his interpretation of the Pinocchio and the whole idea of going down and saving your father from the underworld. And so there's something about grotesque, the idea of the grotesque as a way to. You've seen that video where I talk about the limit and how the guardian of the limit shares something in common with what's on the other side. It's on.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. So think about this: like the guardian of the limit of hell is Cerberus, right? Is a dog. It's a dog. It's a three-headed dog. It's a monster. So the monster is on the outside. Okay, imagine it this way. This is the best way to see it. Imagine levels of monsters. Okay, imagine the furthest monster is like the Leviathan. Okay, and then what stops the Leviathan, let's say, from eating the world is like a smaller version, a smaller dragon, let's say. And then what stops the dragon from eating our world is like, let's say, the dog-headed men. And what stops the dog-headed men from eating our world are, like a foreign tribe that are far away from us. And then what stops the foreign tribe from stopping us are the guards who live on the border of our land, who live, because they live on the border of our land, they tend to intermarry with their enemy, and they tend to mix with the enemy, but they also defend us from the enemy. Okay? So the best prison guard is a prisoner. Does that make sense? Right?
Well, I think Gulag Archipelago, yeah.
Right. Okay. So the best prison guard, the best limit is that which comes from the outside, which can be turned back against the outside. All right. So chaos turned against chaos. In Christianity, we say it's death. It's like the idea of death trampling down death, or death conquering death. So that's what a vaccine is. That's what. Okay. That's what. Let's. In the Bible, there's this story in Adam and Eve about the garments of skin. So when Adam and Eve fall, God gives them garments of skin. So he gives them a covering of dead skins to put around them. And that covering of dead skins is a protection from death. So it's death protecting from death.
Right.
Right. And so, I mean, that's what war is. That's what anything that is this idea that death is like a buffer is both that which will kill you, but that which will protect you from it. Right? So you can see it in terms of supplement. That's a good way to understand it. The idea of supplementarity. And so you need to add. Okay, so how can I explain this? Like, let's say, well, just the idea of medicine. Medicine is exactly that. All medicines are poisons, pretty much. Right? Medicine is not food. Medicine is not something that you eat to make your body to let's say form the matter of your body. Medicine is a poison that you take in little doses in very specific ways in order to stop something that's going to kill you. Okay, and so all medicine is a form, and it's something that you add to your normal life in order to protect you from death. So you can see it as that. You can see it also as a house, right? So you take things from the earth. You take rocks out of the earth, which is your ultimate place where you're going to decompose in life, and then you build this thing around you to stop death from getting you. All right, Jeffrey, you wanted to ask something?
Yeah, I was just wondering, or maybe adding, but it's like controlled chaos, if I'm getting that correct.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you can turn on the outside, maybe even greater chaos.
Yeah, that's exactly the way to see it. Another image of that is a carnival. Carnivals are controlled chaos, and so at the end of the year, at the end of a cycle, you have a carnival where everything is upside down for one day or for 1 week or whatever, and so it's like you're giving a dose of chaos to the cycle in order to prevent it from going into absolute chaos, right? That's why that's why absolute order always leads to absolute chaos. You're supposed to leave a buffer. In the way the church is built is like that. So you have the altar, you have the nave, and you have the narthex.